So the finish I'm talking about this week is the flame retardant finish. Okay, so a flame retardant finish is a special purpose finish, which means that the chemicals that are applied to the fabrics, they enhance the performance of the fabrics, whereas the other types of finishes can affect the appearance and texture of the fabric. But this one is just for the performance of the fabric. So a flame retardant finish was first developed as a temporary finish in the 1930s. So a temporary finish means that the product usually only, the finish usually only lasts until the product is washed or dry cleaned. And so, as you can imagine, this wasn't as effective because then your product was only flame retardant for, well, not very long until you washed it or cleaned it. So they later developed a flame retardant finish that usually lasts for the life of the product. So some fabrics are naturally flame retardant, and those would include like metallic fabrics, or especially fabrics that are made out of glass. And so there is a fabric in our swatch kit, and it is drapery casement fabric, and that is made out of glass, and so it is naturally flame retardant. But most fabrics and fibers aren't naturally flame retardant, so they have to be modified, so they will become that way. And there's a couple ways that you can do that. The first way is that the fibers can be modified to be flame resistant, so that happens before the fabric is even made. And this generally lasts the longest, but it's usually the most expensive, and we'll go over that in a couple slides. And then the second way is the flame retardant finish can be applied to fabric that is already made, and this is the most common way just because it's the least expensive. Okay, so flame retardant finishes are commonly applied to cotton, rayon, nylon, and polyester, and that's just because these are common fabrics that are used in apparel, textiles, interiors, and technical products. And so these are things that you want to have the ability to make flame resistant, just to keep things safe. Okay, so there are a couple ways that you can apply a flame resistant finish to the product. So the first is through fiber modification, and there's a picture on the next slide that will explain it a little bit better, but basically the flame retardant chemical is added to the solution when the synthetic fibers are made, and this makes the finish last a lot longer. The second way is that flame retardant chemicals can be applied to the finished fabric. And this is a durable finish, which means it lasts for the life of the textile, but its effectiveness can decrease with user age, so it may not work quite as good as the fabric gets older, which is something to keep in mind. And sometimes this kind of finish can negatively impact the fabric color or texture. It just changes it a bit, but usually that's not a problem. Okay, so in this picture, it kind of shows how the two different application processes are done. So in example A, you have the fabric that's already been made, and then it is coated in the flame retardant finish solution, and then it dries or cures, and then it is now flame resistant. But this solution, obviously with age or use, can become less effective. Okay, option B is when the flame retardant finish chemical is added when the fibers are made. So you can see the fiber, and it's going through the flame retardant chemical, and then it dries and cures, and then they'll use this treated fiber to make the fabric that makes the flame retardant product. And that's usually the more expensive option, but it usually lasts longer. Okay, so flame retardant fabrics, they ignite slowly, burn slowly, and they usually self-extinguish, so that's really good for preventing fires. They are usually stiffer and weaker than normal fabrics, so that's something to keep in mind. And they do need frequent cleaning because dirt and other things that can get on the fabric can reduce the effectiveness of the flame retardant finish. Okay, so a couple uses for flame retardant finishes on products. They're commonly used in firefighter suits, which makes sense, right? If you're fighting fire, you don't want to catch on fire. Professional race car driver suits, insulation for electrical equipment, clothing for electricians, clothing for welders, upholstery, mattresses, and carpets. And one thing I don't have on the slide, it's also used for children's pajamas, just as a safety thing. So, yeah, a flame retardant finish. They are just used for safety, and these are my sources. Thank you, guys.